There's a plant that can kill us. Not with a knife, not with a bullet. Just a simple touch or a small bite of its fruit is enough. What's interesting is that some of these killer plants are sitting in our homes, smiling at us from their pots. The shocking truth is this. According to official reports, every year hundreds of people around the world die from accidental contact with or ingestion of poisonous plants. Now the question is, how can something so beautiful be so deadly? Well, today we're going to uncover this very secret together. I'm Ramtin, and this is the World Stories channel, where you can hear about the fascinating secrets of the world from ancient times to today. To start, let's get to know a poisonous but ornamental plant that many of us unknowingly keep in our homes and lives. It's called Defendbakia, or dumb cane. Its name sounds like a school kid's nickname, but its story is anything but funny. Some people know it as poison leaf. It's named after its poisonous sap, which causes severe inflammation in the tongue and throat. This popular houseplant grows very easily indoors and has beautiful leaves. But all it takes is for you, your child, or your pet to eat or chew just a piece of its leaf. Then you should be ready for an extremely painful burning sensation in your throat. The tiny, sharp crystals inside this plant are made of calcium oxalate. These act like microscopic, piercing needles, piercing the flesh inside the mouth and causing swelling, burning, and even choking. In rare cases, if the severe swelling blocks the airway, the person can die. Now, let's move on to the beautiful plant that painters love. Foxglove or digitalis. This flower is so beautiful that it could easily belong in a work of art. But behind this beauty lies a deadly substance called digitoxin. On one hand, it's a medicine for heart patients, but on the other, even a small mistake in its use can send us straight to the hospital or even lead to death. If someone eats the leaves or flowers of this plant, they'll experience nausea, hallucinations, irregular heartbeat, and blurred vision. Interestingly, some people say that Van Gogh, the famous painter, during his so-called yellow period, when he painted everything in yellow, was influenced by this very plant. Of course, maybe he just really loved the color yellow. Anyway, let's move on to the next plant. Now we get to a tree, specifically one native to the lush and diverse regions of Southeast Asia, that at first glance looks quite ordinary and unassuming. However, despite its seemingly harmless appearance, just eating a single one of its fruits is more than enough to cause a severe and potentially fatal cardiac arrest. This tree is known as the Pong tree, with the scientific name Cerberodalum. Its fruits look like small mangoes or olives, but they're extremely poisonous. The seed inside these fruits contains a toxin called cerberin, which works in a way that's quite similar to digitoxin. In other words, it disrupts the function of the heart. It's worth knowing that in India, this tree is called the suicide tree. Unfortunately, some people use it to commit suicide. So far, we've gotten to know 3 deadly plants. But from here on out, you're going to see things that are hard to even imagine. Now it's time for the beautiful oleander shrub. Sometimes it's also called karzar. This plant is one of the most beautiful and at the same time most poisonous ornamental plants, and it's especially planted in many parks. It's an evergreen plant with long, narrow leaves and flowers that come in white, pink, red, and yellow. But woe to the day when its leaves or flowers get close to your mouth, because this plant contains oleandrin toxin, which once again targets the heart. Want to know its symptoms? Nausea, dizziness, blurred vision, irregular heartbeat, and in severe cases, death. You've probably heard the name hemlock more than the others. This is the very plant that caused Socrates' death. In fact, Socrates, the great philosopher of ancient Greece, was sentenced to death in 399 BC for corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods of Athens by drinking this plant. In ancient Greece, execution with this plant was common. Plato also wrote that Socrates himself took the cup containing the extract of this plant and drank it. After a few minutes, numbness started from his legs and moved upward until his breathing stopped. This gradual death matches exactly with the mechanism of respiratory paralysis caused by the poison of this plant. But let's get to know this plant a little better. The appearance of this plant is similar to edible plants like carrot, parsley, and wild celery. In fact, its leaves look like parsley or celery, while its root, especially when it hasn't fully grown yet, resembles a carrot. It's exactly these similarities that have caused some people to mistakenly eat it and lose their lives. The reason it's poisonous is because of the dangerous substance inside it, a toxic chemical compound called coniine. This potent substance profoundly disrupts the vital communication between neurons and consequently causes a complete paralysis of the body, especially the crucial respiratory muscles. The next dangerous plant we will discuss is belladonna. Its scientific name is Atropa belladonna, or deadly nightshade. The name says it all. Nightshade means shadow of the night. It refers to darkness and death. Of course, this plant is also known as belladonna. In Italian, belladonna means beautiful woman. However, this plant has no beautifying effects at all. Every part of this plant, from its fruit, which looks like a blueberry with an enticing, delicious appearance and a sweet taste, to its leaves, is extremely poisonous. Even a simple touch can bring out the toxic effects of this plant. In fact, the deadly toxins in belladonna, like atropine, scopolamine, and hyoscyamine, launch a full-scale attack on the body. They cause everything from hallucinations and dry mouth to irregular heartbeat, and in severe cases, cardiac arrest. Things get even worse when the fruits of this plant are eaten. Just 10 to 20 of its potent berries are enough to kill an adult human. This dangerous plant can even cause deadly nighttime incontinence. Imagine a shiny red pea with a black spot on it. It's really beautiful, obviously. But you need to be careful because this plant is poisonous too. Its scientific name is Abrus precatorius. Inside it, there's also the toxin abrin. Just 1/10 of a milligram of this toxin is enough to kill a person. This is no joke at all. What's even stranger is that there's no antidote for it. The symptoms start with simple nausea, but eventually lead to internal bleeding and death. You should know that the hard shell of this plant prevents the toxin from being released, and if the plant is swallowed whole, the digestive system will just pass it through. However, if it's scratched or bitten, the abrin toxin is released, which is extremely deadly. An interesting point is that because of its beautiful appearance, this plant is mostly used to make bracelets or prayer beads. However, many jewelers, while working with the seeds of this plant, might accidentally scratch their surface, and in this way, the toxin enters the body, which can lead to losing a finger, a whole hand, or even death. Let's move on to a historical fact. In the 19th century, people in America were dying one after another, and not from bullets or swords, but from cow's milk. The reason was that the cows were feeding on a plant called white snakeroot, which contaminated their milk. It's also called white aristolochia, and it mainly grows in North America. And even though this plant is used to treat snake bites, eating it instantly kills a person. Because this plant contains a substance called tremitol, which causes vomiting, thirst, madness, and eventually death. Now, a strange but true fact is that the cause of death for Nancy Hanks Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's mother, was the same thing. In December 1818, Nancy, who was only 34 years old, was poisoned through milk. After consuming contaminated milk from cows that had fed on this poisonous plant, Nancy developed a high fever, muscle weakness, headache, and ultimately suffered from heart and respiratory failure. It's important to know that this illness remained unknown for a long time until Dr. Anna Bigsby and a Shawnee woman managed to discover the link between people's poisoning and the consumption of milk contaminated with tramadol. After this discovery, the plant was removed from pastures, and as a result, the disease was almost eradicated. It's a plant known as wolfsbane or aconite, or devil's ginger. It's actually a beautiful flowering plant with blossoms in blue, purple, yellow, and white. But don't let its charming appearance fool you. As you can see, all its names sound pretty scary. But this plant is often used as an ornamental in gardens, which is a big mistake for families with small children or pets, because it contains a deadly poison called aconitine, which directly targets the nervous system and the heart. It's important to know that just touching the leaves or roots of this plant can cause tingling or numbness in your hands. And if you accidentally eat the root or bulb, you might experience symptoms like numbness and tingling in your hands and lips, severe muscle weakness, irregular heartbeat, low blood pressure, nausea and vomiting, severe diarrhea, and ultimately cardiac arrest and death within a few hours. Interestingly, in medieval horror stories, this plant was often used as a remedy against werewolves and vampires. That's why it's called wolfsbane. And finally, we come to the most dangerous plant on this list, the manchineel tree. If you ever come across this tree, it's best to run away quickly because it holds the Guinness World Record for the most dangerous tree. This tree is full of various toxins, some of which we still don't even know about. But we do know that touching its leaves or even just standing under it in the rain can cause blisters and skin burns. Even the smoke from burning its wood can blind a person. The fruits of this tree, which look like small green apples, have deceived many people in the past. Symptoms of eating this fruit include severe pain, throat burns, and even death. Interestingly, Christopher Columbus, the infamous colonizer and explorer of the Americas, called the fruit of this tree the little apple of death. Although the scientific name of this tree is Hippomane mancinella, many people still use the old name, apple of death. Now, an important point is that this tree only grows in parts of South America, Central and South America, and to put it more accurately, it's an endangered tree. So don't worry too much. We've now gotten to know 10 poisonous plants. Let's do a quick recap. In my opinion, the beauty of nature can sometimes be very deceiving. The plant that's sitting in your flower pot at home today might turn into a strange news headline tomorrow. A 34-year-old man died after biting a flower. So we really need to be more aware of our surroundings, because the world is full of dangerous beauties and beautiful dangers. Plants have always been symbols of life, but some of them come with death. So right here, we need to learn an important lesson. Deceptive appearances can be misleading, whether in nature or in life. Now, write in the comments section, which one of these plants do you think is the scariest or most dangerous? Share this video with your friends too, so they can learn about these dangerous plants. Maybe this way, you could save the lives of many people who might accidentally come across these plants.